And welcome back. Let's go ahead and take a look at how to do some basic variable manipulation with some C. And so right here, of course, I started this time with some floats because we've seen a couple examples with integers, but let's do some float notation this time. And so let's just go ahead and start by first creating a float that's going to, let's say, manipulate these two values. So I'm going to say float total is equal to number 1 plus number 2. And then let's just go ahead and print that value out and say the current total is, and we'll just have that return what type we want. We want a float here, so we gotta make sure we just have that proper identifier. And what are we returning? We're returning total. Now let's go ahead and shift it around for our user input. Now because remember it doesn't necessarily have that new line escape character, I want to make sure that I include first a new line escape character here, so that way I know I'm on a new line. And let's just enter and say, please enter in 2 numbers. That will be the new total. And so now we're going to move to our scanf function. And we're going to, of course, want to say what 2 types are we expecting. Well, we're expecting our first type to be a float and our second type to be a float. And we want to say, where are those being stored? Well, it's being stored for number 1 and number 2. So let's make sure we, of course, include our memory reference here. So we say number 1 and our memory reference for number 2. And then we're going to go ahead and update total. Do that first. Total is equal to number 1 plus number 2. And let's go ahead and then print that back out. In fact, we're just going to copy this line of code right here, make ourselves nice and easy. And Roselius here, let's go ahead and run. And so we got a syntax here. Oh, what did we forget? Looks like we forgot ourselves a semicolon. Easy mistake to make. Run one more time. There we go. So the value is 3.5 with a bunch of repeating decimals. So I'll enter in 2 numbers. That'll be the new total. So let's do, before we had 1.2 and 2.3, let's do 1.1. And it's waiting for our second number. So let's do 1.3 now. So that should give me a total 2.4. All right, and we get the current total is 2.4. Very good. Now, what if I had done the same program again, but I tried passing in an integer value? So let's just go ahead and see. So let's go ahead and do that first value. So we'll do 1.1 again, but this time let's just do 1. Hit enter. It works just fine. So this, again, type conversion is something you just have to be careful of when you're working with C. So right here, of course, this is a great example. So the float worked to recognize the integer value of 1 as a float. And so I was able to convert that over because we got 2.1. So that's a quick example here. Let's just go ahead and add one more in here. And so let us say we want to take those 2 numbers and add them. All right, which we've done. Or let's say we want to subtract them or multiply them. Any of those things we can do. But what's about a modulus here? All right, we haven't really looked at modulus. So let's just add in a printf function and say the modulus of total and number 1. Okay, and one thing we haven't seen is can we try to do an arithmetic operation, for example, in a statement. So before I do this, let's go ahead and just test this out first and get our modulus. So can we get a modulus to appear? So we'll take let's just say we want to do float, and we'll make this num mod, and we'll have that equal to total modulus of number 1. And then what is this going to return? It will return num mod. Oh, we can't, of course, forget our return type. What is our return type format we're expecting? Is a float. And so if we run this one, oh, we forgot a semicolon again. One of the disadvantages of online compilers is that we can easily forget things. And look, now we have an error here. All right. So it says it does not know what this is. All right. It says invalid operands to binary percent have float and float. So it doesn't quite know what to do here with this modulus operator. Now the reason why we're getting this here is because what type are we currently using? Well, we're currently using a float type, which is where this is coming in. So let's just say, let's go ahead and change this over to an integer. All right, and I'm going to actually just create 2 new ints. So let's just say int num1, let's just make that 5, and num2, and make that 2. And let's now go ahead and just change this from what we had, just make that num1 and num2. All right, and we'll keep nummod here, but just say num2 and num1, just so we can update that. And again, run. All right, and we forgot to change our format here. So make sure we go ahead and adjust that format. We want that to be an integer now. All right, so now our program looks like it's running, so I'm just going to do 1.1 and 1.2. All right, and now we see, all right, it did get stuck in here, but we see the modulus of num1 and num2 is 1. So now this is working great. All right, but of course I probably want to, again, make sure I put this on a new line here, so that way that's our new line escape character. But what if I wanted to have an operation with this? What if I wanted to do something complex? All right, because we haven't really seen that. What if I want to say nummod, and I want to put that in parentheses, and I want to add to that, let's just add 1. All right, now what I'm expecting this to happen is, if this would be working the way we used to work in many or more modern languages, it would try to do what's in parentheses here first, and then get that value, and then kind of do whatever it needs to do. But this is C, it's a little bit older, so let's just see what happens. So if we go ahead and run this. All right, so we're going ahead and run. All right, now you see we do get 2. So you can, of course, do certain things here if you wanted to multiply it or divide it or add, as we just saw here. So we added 1. Perfect. What if I wanted to add total here? Add in another variable. All right, now this could get tricky because now what are we having here? Total is a float. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and change this to float preemptively because I have a feeling we might need that. And so now if I do 1.1, 1.2, now of course it works. So even though this sentence is not correct, we are getting 3.3 because we know that floats are going to be decimal. This is a integer. So those are little things to kind of keep in mind, little tips and tricks. And this, of course, gives us just one more thing that we can use here in our arsenal.